What up YouTube? How's it going? I hope we're all good. Now today's video I want to talk to you about the Sigma 24-70 DG-DN Art Series lens for the Sony E-mount system and 5 reasons why I decided to pick this lens over some of its competition. Let's get into it. Now this is a mid-range zoom lens. Quite possibly the most boring and dull lens you'll ever own in your life. However, they are very popular, they're very useful, they have their benefits. But I think that this Sigma in particular adds a little bit more excitement to this boring mid-range zoom range, mid-range zoom range, mid-range zoom range, mid-range zoom range, range. You know what I mean. Right, put you down here. Oh, looking, it's a bit better. Right, now before we get started, just going to run through a few of the specs of this lens. Now it is a 24-70 focal length, which is a very, very popular focal length. Probably one of my favourites, I use it all the time. Run and gun shooting, excellent work. Now it's a 2.8 aperture throughout, which means you're going to get some nice creamy looking bokeh from all the way from 24mm all the way up to 70mm. It has an 82mm filter thread, excellent autofocus that works perfectly with Sony's Eye Auto Detect, which is a must. There's a very nice smooth focusing ring. Now it has a few extra little bells and whistles that you would expect in such a premium lens, such as the manual to autofocus switch, custom button, and a lock switch, which means if it's in your bag, if it's on a neck strap, the zoom isn't going to extend on its own. You can lock this so it doesn't creep. Now the cool thing about this is it also allows you to unlock the zoom lock by simply twisting the zoom ring. So if you forgot that you've locked it, like I do on many occasions, you can just twist the zoom and it just unlocks. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail about all these specs because I'm going to bore you to death and you can read these online. It has all the aspherical elements you could ever wish for. It has these rounded aperture blades for nice crispy creamy bokeh. I don't care as long as it looks good. You know what I mean? I mean, you've got Gerald Undone there who's doing all this work for us. I don't need to do it. He's doing it. He'll tell you about it and he'll do a great job. Plus I've been told that these videos tend to go on a little bit, so I'll get straight to it. Now reason number one is the size of this lens. Now when I say size, I don't mean I chose it because it's massive, because it's pretty big. I mean, compare it to my face, it's not much smaller than my face. It's quite heavy too, not very light. But when I say size, I mean generally the 24-70 f2.8 lenses are quite heavy, they're quite beefy. You know, that's just the price you pay for having a nice wide aperture throughout that sort of focal length. There's not I can do about that, I'm afraid. Although Tamron seem to be figuring it out. Their lenses are so light, but then 28mm, I need that 24. Anyway, we'll get into that later. So, size, yes. Personally, it's a compromise I've had to adjust to. So, is it the lightest lens? No. Is it the heaviest lens? No. But if you compare it to its native brother, should we call it, the Sony GM, it's a little bit bigger. Like it's 136mm, I think. I'll put it somewhere here. So 136mm in length. This one's only 125, so you're saving yourself a little bit. Probably just the filter thread and the lens cap, bringing it down to about here. So I mean, we're not talking huge amounts here, but on these sort of lenses, it adds up. So you want to save what you can save. Now as for the weight, we're looking at 886 grams for the Sony and 830 for the Sigma. So only about 50 grams difference, but you know, every little helps, as Asda would say. That's Walmart in America. Sorry, that was terrible. Plus these little micro savings, it means I can actually fit it in my little satchel. So my day-to-day satchel that I walk about every day with, little man bag. This one, it fits in there nicely with my Sony a7S III, no problem, slides in and out. Now the GM, I actually owned this for a while, doesn't fit in that satchel, it's annoying, took it back. So yeah, reason number one, size and weight. Size and weight. Say size doesn't matter. It does, definitely does. Reason number two, the f2.8 aperture. Now that is, for me, honestly, it's been about 10 years in the making as this. I've lusted after the 2.8 aperture on one of these sort of mid-range zooms. I've always had the 24-105 f4 because when you're starting out, it's kind of all I could afford at the time. Had it for about 10 years on about 3 different systems, Canon, Panasonic, Sony, but I've always wanted that f2.8 aperture. I've always thought, what if, you know, what if? So I've always thought, I'll get the f2.8 one day, and I did. I got the GM, but it was too big, it's too heavy. I took it back, and then I went back to a 24-105, but I still wanted a 2.8. Can't win. Tried the Tamron, 28-75. That was nice. Very good, very lightweight, very compact. I would probably recommend that lens actually quite well. Very nice lens. However, a couple of things. I didn't like the fact that it was 28mm. I really like having 24 because this lens is going to be on my camera like 90% of the time. If I wanted a nice wide landscape shot, if I want to get a bit more into the frame, I'd have to switch lenses, and it just gets a bit annoying. I like to just take one lens out with me now and again. And I know that Sigma have also brought out the exact same lens again, but a little bit smaller as a 28-70 2.8, and for the same reason I'm not going to go for that lens. This is why I chose this 24-70, because that's the focal length I want. So yeah, comparing it to the 24-105, the f4, in the past that's been my go-to lens, one that I've just said many times that I've loved, had before. And one of the other comparisons that you had back then, like when you were choosing lenses a few years ago, was whether or not it had IBIS sort of in the lens. You didn't have it in the camera in those sort of days, like when you had the DSLRs, things like that. You kind of had to get it in the lens if you wanted it, and it was a big plus to have it in the lens. So the 24-105 became even more desirable as opposed to the 24-70s back in those days. I'm sounding like I'm 96. I'm not that old. Anyway, so yeah, this Sigma does not have IBIS, does not have image stabilization, but the camera that I'm using it on, which is the A7S III, has active stabilization and IBIS. It's great. I mean, the active stabilization is really nice, really nice. Again, another reason why 24mm is pretty important, because it adds that 10% crop with the active stab. That then becomes something like a 28, 29 or something like that. If I had a 28, it'd be like a 35. Gets too much, gets too much. So yeah, you'll see some examples throughout this video. When we went to Wales, I'd recommend Wales. If you've never been, come to Wales. Honestly, I don't live in Wales. I'm not far from Wales though, about 3 hours, but never been before. Lovely. North Wales is where I went, near Snowdonia. A place called Barmouth, or Barmouth, or whatever it's called. Definitely recommend. Come visit. When you can, you know, when it's safe. It's not very safe, is it? It's COVID malarkey. Hopefully you're watching this in the future and COVID's kind of a thing of the past. Or we're all flesh-eating zombies. Then at least you know what lens to use to film it all, document it. Anyway, back on track. f2.8 aperture, that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Again, lusted after it. Not only because of the shallow depth of field, because I know that's not what everything's about, but it is very nice. But also the extra stopper light. And it's very, very good, very handy. I like having that. I do quite a lot of shooting in the evenings, night times, been able to reduce my ISO, it's good. Plus, I live in England, so we get quite a lot of shifts in daylight throughout the year. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's bright sunshine. The other time of the year, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's pitch black. Yeah, pitch black at 4 o'clock, it's ridiculous. Suffer a little bit from SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Anyway, back on track. Reason number 2, f2.8 aperture. Reason number 3, price. It's always price, especially with me. If anybody knows me, it's always to do with price. Another reason I never went for an f2.8 is normally they cost a bloody fortune. Like, I think the GM is about 1800 quid. I can't afford 1800 pounds. It's ridiculous. Whereas the 24-105 f4s, they're always around 700-800. Apart from Sony for some reason, about £1,000 for Sonys. Don't know why. But yeah, they're always about half the price. Until Sigma came around. It's about £1,000 for this lens. It's actually quite good for an f2.8 24-70. Of this sort of caliber. Very nice indeed, Sigma. I appreciate it very much. So how does it compare to the GM then? If that's 1800 quid and this is only £1,000 or 1099, I don't know what it is, I'll put the price up here. Why is the Sony so much more expensive? That's a good question, because I don't know either. I mean, it has the same sort of build quality, it's very well built, very well built. It has all the extra bells and whistles that I showed you at the beginning, such as the little switches and stuff. 2.8 aperture, amazing autofocus. It even has a better minimum focusing distance, which is one of the reasons why I think it just adds a little bit more excitement to this sort of boring mid-range zoom. I mean, having a minimum focusing distance of, go to my notes, where is it? 18 centimeters at its widest. So 24mm, you can get 18 centimeters close. It's like here, it's quite close, is that? I mean, the Sony, I think it's 38 centimeters, so it's more than double. So you're out here. So yeah, having an 18 centimeter minimum focusing distance, loads of fun. Yeah, well up in there. Now if we compare the cost to the Sony 24-105 f4, again, it's a very similar cost. It's about £1,000 and you're getting that extra 2.8. Reason number 4, it's kind of like that age-old question, which I might have already answered in the previous video. I should really structure these a little bit better. Anyway, that age-old question, you know, the one that Moses asked. I'm not religious, so whoever he asked things, that guy, yeah, he asked which one, the 24-70 f2.8 or the 24-105 f4, which one do you choose? So yeah, reason number 4, I feel it eliminates that question, because price, it's no longer double the price. IBIS, no need for IBIS, and this camera has active stabilisation. The 24-105s generally had a decent macro capability. This has a minimum focusing distance of 18 centimeters, as I mentioned. Nice little bit of macro capability. Size and weight, this lens, as I mentioned, it's not that much bigger, not that much heavier. It's not like the GM, it's not huge and massive. Yeah, it's big and it's slightly heavy, but it's a decent compromise. So yeah, reason number 4 gets rid of that question that's been bugging me for 10 years. First world problems. First world problems. Reason number 5. I know you're probably all there about to type at the bottom saying, what about the 105 focal length? You can get some nice background separation with your 105, can't you, and your f4? I know you can, I know you can. Forgot where we're going with this. But mainly, reason number 5 is, I'm a hybrid shooter. I like to do both video and video. No, what the hell? I'm a hybrid shooter, so I like to do a bit of video, do a bit of photography, mix and match throughout the day, whatever. Which means that my setup has to meet a few criteria, which number 1 is it has to be relatively light. I also want 24mm at its widest end. It needs to be well built, needs to be weather sealed, needs to have great autofocus, great image quality, needs to be small enough to fit in my day bag. This one needs to have good low light performance. But the key point is which is better for me, 105mm or an f2.8. I've gone for the f2.8. Now it may not be the same for you, you might have a different reason, you might have different priorities. Each to their own, each to their own. I'm not here to judge, but are there any downsides? Well, there are a couple, I guess. I mean, people moan about the dust. I've not had any dust problems yet. Another downside, it's not a Sony. I mean, call me snobbish. But yeah, I find if it's made from the same manufacturer, so if it's Sony and a Sony lens, tends to get rid of all the little niggles that you might have. Might be a bit more ironed out, a bit more polished. Kind of like having an iPhone and then an Android smartwatch. It works, but doesn't work very well. However, I'm not experiencing any problems, and I think those sort of days are gone now anyway. I think third-party lenses are just as good. And I think Sigma have really stepped up the game in the past few years. I mean, they're coming out with some stellar lenses. There's no complaints there at all. So for me, that's it. They're the only downsides. I don't have any more. So who would I recommend the lens for? I don't know. Anyone? You're into photography? Then yeah, I mean, it's a great all-rounder, isn't it? If you're into video, yeah, it's a great all-rounder. That's why people go for these lenses. That's why people choose a mid-range zoom, because they're so versatile. At the end of the day, I mean, it comes down to what you want and what you want from a lens. Just because I'm making this video doesn't mean that I'm right, you know. This isn't 5 reasons why you should definitely get this lens. It's 5 reasons why I chose to get this lens. Your reasons might be different. Or if you haven't made a decision yet, hopefully this video was useful. I don't know, go watch a few more though. Don't just be buying because I'm buying. Because I know I set trends. I know I'm a trendsetter. I mean, just look at this ponytail. Like a retired footballer. Or a failed footballer. So I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. Consider subscribing, always puts a smile on my face when I get an extra little subscriber. Appreciate everybody out there. Hit the bell if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next video, which I'm hoping is going to be a little bit sooner than this one because it took a little time out, started a new job, very, very time consuming. I do this in spare time, so I find it very difficult to find time these days, but I'm going to try. Anyway, see you in the next video.